The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Rudy's Revelation.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
This is a conspiracy. This is a conspiracy.
Hey everyone, welcome back. It is June 24th, Tuesday. I had a little respite. I took a long weekend and unplugged from all things digital. I didn't look at the news except for on Saturday. I didn't even look at the news, but I did hear about the U.S. air attacks on Iran. Several sites were struck. It was bound to happen. It was surprised because Trump had said he was going to wait 2 weeks, and he didn't. And there's a lot to talk about considering that. And then there was a subsequent ceasefire that now has been broken, and there's on again, off again war. We're going to talk all about that coming up. Also, in Florida, 60 children, trafficked children, were rescued during an operation there. We're going to talk about that as well. This weekend, as I said, I unplugged. I did a lot of things that were totally diverse and contrary to what I usually do. I did not check in on the news. I did not look at any media, not even when I heard the news about the attack. And it was very, very helpful. So I suggest anybody who has the chance or wherewithal to do it. I was at a retreat of sorts, and it was just funny to notice how many people could not resist looking at their phone during this retreat, which at the specific resort was no cell phone use was allowed. I mean, they didn't really enforce it, but the fact that people could not resist looking at their phone, I found it very refreshing. So I suggest anybody that would like to do that, do it. All right, it is Tuesday, June 24th. So I think the best thing to do is break right into the headlines. So let's do that. We're going to start with the UK Metro. Trump drops F-bomb live on TV over Israel and Iran violating ceasefire. So from the UK Metro, Donald Trump lost his temper swearing live on TV over Israel and Iran's violations of the ceasefire. The U.S. president swapped his celebratory tone from this morning when he announced the apparent agreement, a two-day ceasefire. A ceasefire 2 days after America launched the airstrikes on 3 Iranian nuclear sites. He told reporters, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. We have to have Israel calm down because they went on a mission this morning. Minutes before facing the press, Trump typed out in anger on Truth Social, Israel, do not drop those bombs. Well, we obviously know what's happening here. And if you didn't know, Israel uses the U.S. Israel is no friend to the U.S. What does Israel do for the U.S. besides buy armaments? They don't really do anything for the U.S. They spy on the U.S. Mossad has infiltrated the United States government. We have places like AIPAC, lobbying groups for Israel that all they seem to do day after day, night after night, is influence and manipulate America to do their bidding. You know, that's not something we should be catering to or even nurturing that sort of relationship. I understand there's a big Jewish population in the United States, and a lot of Jews in the United States support Israel, the state of Israel, which is a secular nation, by the way. But also, there are a lot of secular Jews that support Israel. There are a lot of Zionists. I understand all this, and I know how important it is for Jews living in the United States to support the nation of Israel. And I don't besmirch them for that. But people like fucking Mark Levine, who I used to enjoy listening to, had the problem with Jewish commentators is that your audience is American. And so people like me are sick and tired since October 7th. All Mark Levine talks about is fucking Israel. All right. I don't listen to Shapiro, so I don't give a shit about him. But I used to listen to Mark Levine. Now I can't stand listening to him. And his latest tirade, which we're going to get to in just a second, he goes off on Matt Gaetz, on Marjorie Taylor Greene, on Steve Bannon, and all the people who said, we don't want to get into a war because it's costly. You know how much those missions, those B-2 missions cost the United States? How much those cruise missiles that were launched, how much they cost the U.S. taxpayer? I understand what they're trying to do, and strategically, it may indeed make sense. But I'm not a war guy. So because you voice displeasure at getting the United States involved in another armed conflict, that doesn't make you all the things that Mark Levine suggested about MTG, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to get to that in just a second. So let's get to more headlines. Fox News lashes out at Israel and Iran with profanity for breaking ceasefire. The president vows to see if he can stop it as missiles exchange continue despite ceasefire. President Donald Trump expressed deep frustration with both Israel and Iran Tuesday, saying the two countries don't know what the fuck they're doing. Now, we got into this already, and I'm not going to belabor the point here about what Trump said. Trump made the comments while departing from the White House for a NATO summit Tuesday morning. Both Israel and Iran fired missiles at one another following the imposition of a ceasefire Monday night. Now, first of all, this is Fox News, but all the other reports are the same. What missiles? Iran was conducting airstrikes. Did Iran conduct more airstrikes? It seems by what Trump said is don't drop those bombs. So it seems like airstrikes. So when you say Israel fired missiles, you think it's surface to surface missiles. Is it cruise missiles? So that's not good reporting. So he says, Trump went on to say, I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So the problem is Trump trusted Israel. And that was a mistake. Because there's no, like I said, Israel is no friend to the United States. The United States is a friend to Israel, but Israel is no friend to the United States. What allegiance does the United States have? Does Israel have to the United States? None. They need them as a military ally, but if we know from the USS Liberty, and we know in a lot of different contexts, the infiltration of the of Washington D.C. by Mossad, etc. We know that there's a problem here, and the fact that Trump trusted Netanyahu. What is Trump's recourse against Israel? I don't think there is one. All right, the New York Times, Trump lashes out at Israel and Iran as fragile truce is tested. Mr. Trump suggested that both Israel and Iran had continued firing despite a ceasefire that the both had agreed to hours earlier. He warned Israel that further attacks would be a major violation. Hold on a second here. Already technical difficulties. As I mentioned before, he trusted Israel. I could have told you, because this is what Trump did, right? Benjamin Netanyahu or Israel or whoever he addressed, we will conduct the B-2 airstrikes with the bunker busting 30,000-pound bombs we will conduct this airstrike if after these strikes are done, you agree to a ceasefire. Benjamin Netanyahu says, of course, President Trump, we will do as you wish. However, Benjamin Netanyahu didn't say he'd stick to the ceasefire. As Seinfeld said, it's okay to take a reservation, it's holding the reservation. So what he did, he said, well, I'll agree to a ceasefire, but that didn't mean he'd stick to the ceasefire. Ready. BBC says, do not drop those bombs. Trump warns Israel after it vows powerful strikes on Iran. The Associated Press, Trump says both Iran and Israel violated the ceasefire. It's very likely that Israel violated the ceasefire first. Iran is on their back foot here. Whatever their intent is, they need time to reconstitute and to take stock of what these attacks meant. Maybe China is shipping in missiles that they need to restock their missile supply. That could be very likely, so they need time to do that. I think Israel is the one that violated here. I don't think there's going to be a cessation to hostilities, so. Daily Beast is reporting Marjorie Taylor Greene starts new MAGA war with screeching Fox News host. I wonder who the screeching Fox News host is. Marjorie Taylor Greene has attacked Fox News and its screeching host, Mark Levine, even claiming the right-wing network is scaring viewers to increase its ratings. We'll get to that in just a second, too. Speaking on OAN's The Matt Gaetz Show, Greene stepped up the MAGA civil war by laying into Mark Levine, questioning his support for President Trump. Oh, that's not really, this is the Daily Beast, so let's just be careful here. Realistically, I listened to Mark Levine's radio show where he took aim at Steve Bannon, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, probably after the Matt Gaetz show, since you brought up Matt Gaetz, and others, because they didn't back the attacks on Iran. The two conservatives have clashed over Levine's backing Trump's bombing of Iran, while Greene is opposed to it, of course. And this is a thing that I was railing about during the Mark Levine show is, forget about Matt Gaetz or even Steve Bannon. They're have their shows, and just like Mark Levine, they're allowed to voice their opinion. But Marjorie Taylor Greene is a representative in Congress for, I forget which district in Georgia. So it is her job to represent the views of her constituents. So if her constituents don't want Trump to bomb Iran, then she's going to come out and say that. Levine has also been taking pot shots at Greene on X, including one from earlier this month that read, "Who died and named Marjorie Taylor Greene the Queen of MAGA?" She's not the Queen of MAGA, but she is a representative in Congress that represents the views of her constituents. And he says, Mark Levine says, you're a little-known politician from Georgia. I don't know if she's little known now. He goes on to say, I hate to break the news to you, we're Team Trump, go Trump. Levine has also called MTG a shameless nitwit and incredibly dumb on X. Now, I'm not going to sit here and stand up for Marjorie Taylor Greene. But I will tell you one thing, she's certainly passionate about her views. And I'm all for that if you're representing your constituency or your district, and that's what they feel, and you're voicing their concerns. I'm all for that. She's a powerhouse. She's a Spitfire. She's a spark plug. Wouldn't you want? I would want Marjorie Taylor Greene as my representative. I've got that purple-haired crone, Rosa DeLauro, instead. On Monday, Matt Green told Matt Getz, I can't believe that Fox News allowed that one of their hosts, and he didn't even, I guess she didn't even refer, well, he did refer to him by name. Can't believe that one of her hosts to go around and call me names on social media that is so unprofessional. It really speaks to what kind of media company Fox News is. Mark Levine, obviously, he was a never Trumper from the beginning. He hated Donald Trump. He was totally against him and tried to stop him from becoming president. But yet somehow now Mark Levine is the voice of MAGA. She continued, I don't think so, Matt. You and I, Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, all of us have been fighting hard to stay on these America First policies and stay out of foreign wars. We're MAGA. We're the voice of MAGA. And the people totally agree with us. The thing is, and I'm for isolationism, certainly, and I'm for America First and all these things, but strategically, these attacks on Iran have a lot of benefits as far as diplomacy is concerned, not just helping Israel, not just hurting Iran's nuclear program, but also showing strong signs to Trump, to China, to Russia, that when Trump says something, he means it. And that goes a long way in foreign diplomacy. Speak softly, or in Trump's case, speak loudly, but also carry a big stick. And this is what Marjorie Taylor Greene and others are talking about. National Terrorism Advisory System, summary of the threat to the United States. I'm not going to go into it too much, but it talks about all the threats that Iran poses to the United States. Just the News. Excuse me here. I'm having some technical difficulties. Just the News, AG Bondi says Iran nationals in U.S. pose a threat. Well over 1,000 entered illegally under Biden. While this is true, not everyone is Hezbollah. You know, there are plenty of Iranians who wanted to escape Iran and wanted to come to America to be free. You can't besmirch them for that. Certainly. Yeah, I'm having technical difficulties. My scene switcher isn't working. So excuse me, but we'll move on. For those of you who are watching, if you're listening, it's irrelevant. The CIA's mouthpiece, the Washington Post, says Iran's cyber forces have many ways to attack U.S., experts warn. Now, the problem with this is the CIA's cyber forces can attack anyone, can use a cyber attack on any country, including the U.S., and make it look like another country did it. So as many people have said, is the CIA could certainly blow something up in this country and pin it on Hezbollah, or have a cyber attack, which I think is more likely because they're telegraphing here. And then the whole United States electrical grid goes down and they're going to blame it on Iran. We know how these things work. See, the biggest problem that people had with Trump is conducting this attack is he's dipping his toe in the water. And once you do that, there is a great threat of you being pushed all the way in by the people hiding in the shadows behind you. So he dips his toe in the water, he attacks Iran, and then a supposed Iran retaliation, even though Iran's retaliations sometimes are telegraphed. They tell us they're going to happen. They're just trying to save face. They're not trying to be provocative. But if the CIA or any other false flag actors conduct an attack, it'll be massive. A cyber attack, a terrorist bombing, to try to accentuate or provoke military reaction by the United States or Israel or both to get us into the Third World War. So the people that are out there saying, oh, this Third World, even Mark Levine was talking about, all this talking about Third World War, these people are idiots. No, because we know the way things work. And I'm not necessarily saying that Iran might conduct operations that might be provocative, but there are plenty of people with a lot of things to gain that would do so. Financial Times, Iranian paramilitaries go on the hunt for Mossad agents. Islamic Republic's Basij force has spearheaded a crackdown in which hundreds of alleged collaborators have been arrested. I mean, they could arrest their whole population. I'm sure there are collaborators, but probably out of the hundreds they get, maybe they get 2. So, it's watered down. So you're torturing 100 people. Some might give false confessions and then some might give real confessions. So how do you tell the false confession from the real confession? You don't. And then it goes into voluntary members of Revolutionary Guard's paramilitary wing, the Basij, monitor roads, inspect vehicles, and they look for Jews. Just the News is reporting Trump bombed Iran into ceasefire and sent a loud message to China and Russia. This is part of the strategy that makes it a win-win. It's like in the Second World War, the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki was indeed meant to end hostilities with Japan, but also was meant to send a message to the Soviet Union. In a historic sequence of events, the world went from watching Iran nuclear sites obliterated to witnessing Iran's so-called retaliation to then processing a ceasefire in just 48 hours. The extraordinary display of U.S. soft and hard power by President Donald Trump should have an impact far outside the Middle East, particularly with Russia and China, according to security expert Rebecca Grant. I don't know her, so I can't put any weight on what she had to say, and it's a one source, so we don't know for sure. But I'm telling you that this was a part of the thought process going into deciding whether or not to make these strikes, because it's a risk-free way of being able to guarantee when Trump makes a threat that he means to keep it. So Grant, who serves as vice president to the Lexicon Institute, also said this is a cornerstone of our deterrence and containment policy. So the success against Iran's air defenses has really strengthened U.S. global military policy and stability around the world. And it should scare China and Russia quite a lot. Does it scare them? No. But it certainly means that when Trump makes a threat, that he intends to carry it out. Whether he will or not is something entirely different. So Politico is reporting, this is other big big news today. Supreme Court eases rapid deportations to countries where immigrants have no ties. This is Politico. Again, this is the CIA. The High Court's majority offered no explanation for its ruling because it is in the power of the executive to deport illegal aliens. They do need due process, but the due process is limited because once they're determined to be in the country illegally, they can be deported. That's it. What do you do with illegal aliens? Look at the law. They get deported. That's it. Once you've determined that they're here illegally and now with records, back in the 18th century or even 19th century, early 19th century, they didn't have records. In the 18th century, they didn't have passports. So it was harder to determine who was illegal and who wasn't. And so once somebody made it here, got off the ship, it's very hard to determine when they arrived, how they arrived, whether they were born there or not. Regardless, if the individual can't prove that they're here legally, to show or determine proof that they have a visa or are a United States citizen, then they get deported. I don't understand. It's not it's not some game where they get to go to trial and decide whether they get to stay. That's the Democrats' premise. A liberal premise is they get to go to court and make an argument and say, "Hey man, I'm a good person. I'll be good. I didn't commit any crime. Just let me stay." And then a liberal judge would go, "Of course." That's not how it works. The thing is that the Biden administration changed the rules around asylum claims, which muddied the waters. 80 to really 90% of all asylum claims are rejected because they have to show political persecution by the state. This kind of thing is like, oh, bad men are after me in my home country. Yeah, prove it. All they have to do is make that statement. All right, just the news. Egyptian who firebombed Jewish event in Colorado failed gun check but wasn't deported. So this Egyptian, Mohammed Sabri Solomon, had overstayed his visa, and I believe so did his family. So I don't know how his family got over here on a tourist visa. Oh, we're just seeing the sights. And then they just rent an apartment and move in. But in any case, back in November or October, in November, he tried to buy a firearm, right? But he's not a United States citizen. And during a background check, apparently during a criminal background check, there was something there that denied him access to a gun. So there's something else in there that's worrisome. We don't know what it is, but Colorado or whoever, for some reason, it's supposed to go through the FBI, the background check. If a foreign national tries to buy a gun in this country and then are denied, that should be a red flag and immediately determine whether that person is here illegally, and if so, they should be deported. Washington Examiner, mired in infighting with Trump full speed ahead, Democrats can't find their way. They're hitting all the wrong buttons. They think, and this is the thing with politics, and this is why astute politicians, Lindsey Graham being one, that doesn't mean I endorse Lindsey Graham. I'm just saying people that are astute politicians can see which way the wind is blowing because public opinion is fickle. And so if you're using the 2019, 2018, 2017, 2015 playbook, that's not the mindset of the electorate anymore. So they keep going back. They think, all Democrats think, all they have to do is bash Trump to win, the liberals. And you might win the socialists because all the socialists out there think Trump is a fascist or he's an authoritarian. The problem is that fewer and fewer of these lies are working in the general electorate. Because they see Trump, you go, he's not an authoritarian. You even have people of color on the street during on the street interviews going, I don't understand. People are here illegally and Trump goes to deport them and people have a problem with this. Why? There isn't one. So, the Washington Examiner article goes on to say the Democrats who are distracted and back on their feet, meaning back on their heels, with the party engaged in bitter infighting and struggling to come up with a unified strategy to oppose Trump, Trump is pushing forward on all fronts, setting the agenda. Just look at the recent bombing of nuclear sites in Iran and putting together one of the most consequential presidencies in years. Part of the problem is that Democrats are still in a state of shock. Go back to the last summer when the internal coup resulted in President Joe Biden's departure from the re-election race. Then go to November where the party was stunned to lose to Trump. Why? And more evidence coming out that Trump actually won in 2020. I mean, it's not even debatable anymore. Then go to January, February, March of this year when they were overwhelmed by Trump's audacious use of executive authority in the first months of his office, but not illegal. Democrats are still playing catch up. Actually, if you were going to use a race analogy, is that Trump took off far ahead because the Democrats were so distracted that when the start happened, they didn't know what to do. So Trump was way ahead. They have just are given up on the side of the road panting. And Trump is still running far ahead. They don't know what to do. Part of the problem here is PJ Media reports, does Kamala Harris really think this will revive her political career? What are they talking about? Well, it's the race for governor, California. The reality is Kamala's political capital is running on empty, says PJ Media. If she ever had any at all, she's unpopular in her own state, with polls consistently showing her trailing behind other Democrats. The fatigue is palpable. Californians are tired of politicians who parachute in only when it serves their ambitions. The Democrat field for California governor is already crowded and competitive, featuring candidates with actual track records of engagement on state issues. Kamala, by contrast, is an empty pantsuit. The notion that she could parachute back into California and be greeted as a savior is laughable, indeed. In the end, PJ Media goes on to say Harris' flirtation with the governor's race is less about public service and more about her quest for political relevance. It's the latest chapter in her career defined by ambition over accomplishment, calculation over conviction. If Kamala does jump into the way, she'll find that the voters she's neglected for years aren't so eager to welcome her back. She's an empty pantsuit with zero accomplishments. Indeed. Federalist today is reporting rogue federal judge openly defies Supreme Court ruling on deportation of violent criminal illegals. The liberals continue with their playbook. Federal judge issued an order late Monday night claiming an earlier ruling from the Supreme Court that permitted deportations to continue is irrelevant. A lower federal judge says that his boss is the Supreme Court overlords. 6 months after Judge Brian E. Murphy was nominated by then-President Joe Biden and confirmed by the Senate during the last few weeks of the Democrats' control, he issued an order stating the court's May 21st, 2025 order on remedy remains in full force and effect, notwithstanding today's stay of preliminary injunction. District Court's remedial orders were not properly before the Supreme Court because the government has not appealed them or sought to stay pending forthcoming appeal. Do they have to? So you're saying that Republicans, conservatives, or somebody has to sue the decision Brian Murphy made and bring it to the Supreme Court for him to stop his stay. It's called legal precedent. Supreme Court trumps all. No pun intended. Post-Millennial is reporting jury orders January 6 pardonee to pay $500,000 in restitution to MPD officer's widow. I guess that's Metropolitan Police Department for D.C. Officer Jeffrey Smith died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound 9 days after January 6th. First thing here is, did he die of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, or was he ready to rat out the Fedsurrection? I'm always suspect of suicides, especially somebody that might know something. I was so troubled by what I saw, I'm suicidal. Why would someone commit suicide? So the widow of a Metropolitan police officer who killed himself 9 days after January 6, 2021 has been awarded $500,000. In restitution for a 69-year-old man, David Walls Kaufman was already cleared in the wrongful death suit of Officer Jeffrey Smith, served a 60-day prison term for his involvement in the riot that day, and was pardoned by President Trump. So this is what people do who don't like, and civil convictions, civil suits should rely heavily on any criminal acquittal. So before the 8-member jury returned their verdict of damages to be paid by Walls Kaufman, the U.S. District Judge Anna Reyes dismissed wrongful death claims against him. Reyes told the jury it was not reasonable to conclude that Walls Kaufman's actions on January 6 could have led to Smith's self-inflicted death 9 days later. Of course not. The allegation brought by widow Erin Smith was that Walls Kaufman gave her husband a concussion by striking him in the head with his own police baton. That's a nice trick. No crime happened. I never struck the officers, Walls Kaufman said. As to the verdict of the damages, he said, I'm just stunned. Absolutely ridiculous. Indeed, it is. The Federalist judge attempts to set illegal alien Abrego Garcia free, further squandering court's credibility. So liberals, again, they're just making up their own rules. Here's a guy who was here illegally, it says. A judge in Tennessee is about to release self-professed illegal alien Kilmar Abrego Garcia from jail, even though she knows he's in the country unlawfully, meaning he's a criminal, and knows that when she orders the release of this illegal alien, that he will be immediately apprehended by immigration authorities. U.S. Magistrate Judge Barbara Holmes on Sunday ruled that the Trump administration had failed to prove Abrego Garcia, Salvadoran national, was a likely flight risk or a threat to the public in the run-up to his human trafficking trial. So he still hasn't gone to trial on human trafficking. So she released him without bond. She acknowledged, however, that the Immigration and Customs Enforcement would obviously take him into custody the second he's released from jail, calling her own decision little more than an academic exercise, a bias exercise. He doesn't need to be criminally convicted of anything else if he's here illegally to be deported. Thorn in the side, Lisa Murkowski is the problem that won't go away. The reason I brought this up is the fact that Lisa Murkowski said she might leave the Republican Party. She's anti-Trump. She's anti-MAGA. The Tea Party has effectively remade the Republican Party, and those establishment Republicans who still remain are just plain insurrection. So what they do is they want to remain in power so they can muck up the works, like Mitch McConnell muck up the works of the MAGA agenda. Post-millennial Andrew Cuomo was blackmailed as governor. Some sexual allegations were 100% fake. O'Keefe Media Group undercover videos. Some of the allegations are 100% fake because those girls were in the allegations, were sitting on his lap taking selfies. I'm not going to go too much into this, except, as I stated earlier, that these sexual allegations were just a way to remove Cuomo from more serious allegations and impeachment over the tens of thousands of elderly deaths he caused by shipping COVID patients into nursing homes. One of the worst things. So in this conviction, timely conviction for him to be ousted as governor, could guarantee his political comeback, which is now happening. But the whole thing was fake. The sexual allegations were all fake because they had to have a reason for him to parachute out. And so the reason was, he grabbed ass. What else is happening in the New York City mayoral race? New York Post is reporting shocking poll shows Zohran Mamdani overtaking Andrew Cuomo in New York City's ranked choice primary. Lefty upstart, he's really a socialist, has leapfrogged over Governor Andrew Cuomo in the city's ranked choice Democratic primary for mayor, according to a stunning new poll released Monday. I'm not going to get into the poll so much. All I have to do is point out that the Chicago Tribune warned New York City voters not to elect Zoran Mamdani because what New York City doesn't need is more socialism. And that's exactly what it'll bring. It'll ruin the city. We saw what Mayor Koch did in the 70s to New York. It's not going to be good for New York City because it's the money that makes New York City run. And so if you alienate the people with big money and drive them out of the city, you're going to be left with a festering rat hole. And he's a socialist, and so Chicago Tribune warned, don't do it. But the New York City electorate, the majority of people, the middle and lower income people, want socialism. But they're not learned, so they don't know what socialism does to a municipality or a state or a nation state. And then it gets into ranked choice, how terrible it is. That's how Murkowski stayed in power in Alaska, because they have ranked choice. And Chewbacca, who was the MAGA favorite, actually would have won, but they had ranked choice, and Murkowski ended up staying in the Senate. And that's what's going to, since the socialists, that's what they do. They get ranked voting in there, ranked choice voting. And so with a smaller voter demographic, they're able to push people in. I led with this a little bit. This is PJ Media, 60 missing kids found in Florida during largest rescue in U.S. history. Florida Attorney General James Utmeyer and the United States Marshal for the Central District of Florida, William Berger, announced at a press conference on Monday that two-week operation known as Operation Dragon Eye, one of, if not the largest child rescue missions in the United States, was a success. The two-week operation saved the lives of at least 60 children and saw 8 adults arrested on charges including human trafficking, child endangerment, drug possession, and drug trafficking. We don't know the details of the case. Apparently, several of the girls were impregnated by their captors. So they're teenagers. Who knows if they were being trafficked for sex or what was the purpose? But any children rescued from traffickers is a win. Just the News is reporting, amid nasty pressure campaign from President Trump, Fed Chair Jerome Powell set to testify. Well, Powell will present the Fed's semi-annual monetary policy report to the U.S. House Financial Services Committee at 10 a.m. today. The chairman's remarks before Congress comes about as Trump hounds Powell to lower interest rates. Why? Well, first of all, Trump called Chairman Powell not a smart person and also dubbed him too late for not cutting rates. Too late, Powell. Last week, the president even suggested appointing himself as chairman of the Federal Reserve. The board wouldn't go for that. He also called for aggressive cuts. Indeed, Trump said, Europe has had 10 cuts. We have had none. Trump wrote last week, we should be 2.5 points lower interest rate. We're way up there still. And the fact is, the red line and the trigger to cut rates, inflation is at 2.1. It's hovering around 2. 2 is the target, and it's close to 2, and he still won't cut rates. If it gets to 2 or under and he still doesn't cut rates, we know we've got a saboteur. All right, I wanted to talk about this a little bit. Fox News is reporting church attacks can be stopped with 3-step training strategy, security experts say. And this training experts say that observers need to spot anomalies is the key to preventing violence at churches following Sunday's attempted mass shooting in Michigan. So, what happened? So, this guy, 3-named assassin, of course, and if you look at this guy, another wind-up toy. We knew this would happen. I thought it was a black church because it is in Detroit, I believe. Or maybe it's in a suburb of Detroit, Romulus. Wayne Police Department. So I don't know. But apparently this young man, 31, and if you look at his picture, you could see he's got that same expression. Here he's smiling a little bit, but as Ryan Roof, the other black church shooter, you have these young wind-up toys who are on more than likely on psychoactive drugs, and then they get triggered through online conversations with certain, probably ex-FBI folks, we don't know who. So they keep playing this card over and over again. So he drove up into this church with an AR-15, an automatic pistol with many magazines of ammunition. But the great thing about it was he started popping off in the parking lot. Whether it mattered, whether he was going to get out of the car or not. But several successful mass shooters did start shooting when they were still in the car, including the guy in Buffalo. Why all these mass shooters have the same MO? They always have an AR-15. You know, it's like, what? Why? We don't have, we never have a motive, really. It's always loosely based. So the story goes on to say several staff members from the church approached the gunman. A parishioner struck the gunman with his vehicle as the gunman shot the vehicle repeatedly. The church security team was alerted by the gunfire and reacted quickly to engage the suspect outside the main entrance doors of the church. Security team locked the front doors and engaged with gunfire. That's what engagement means. With a suspect who was shot and killed by the member of the security team. All you need to know is that if you have a firearm and you're part of a security team, just like Ryan, what was his house? The guy from, what was it, Wisconsin? Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse. He was hired as security by someone. And he was acting in that capacity when he shot the first guy. It was actually, and that's why I don't think he was ever charged with that crime. Because his first victim, I believe it was still on the property of the property he was supposed to protect. The other two shootings happened in the street. One guy was killed. The other guy was shot in the arm. And the one guy that was shot in the arm was trying to actively shoot him with a pistol. That's why I never point a gun at somebody. If you're pointing a gun, shoot. People watch too many TV shows or they watch Cops. Cops are a completely different animal. Cops will point a gun at you and train it on you and try to get you to stop engaging in whatever, activity, violent activity you're engaged in. And then they shoot you. But as a layperson, you pull that gun out, you point it at somebody, better stop popping. Just the News is reporting FDA, CDC advisors say lost pregnancy is higher than expected following early mRNA vaccination. We knew this already. So they did a study of failed pregnancies before COVID and after COVID. And they found that fetal losses were 43% higher in people that had the vaccine. And then it was even higher for people that got booster. And then they looked at, as a control, they looked at flu vaccinations, how flu vaccinations affected pregnancies before and after. Where there was literally no change with the old flu vaccination. Fox News is reporting humanoid robots handle quality checks and assembly at auto plant. Kepler's K2 humanoid robots step into the spotlight at SAICGM. So this is a General Motors plant. Told you AI is going to replace jobs. That's happening lickety split. And soon following behind will be the humanoid robots. And when they start doing surgery, which they're already doing some surgeries, but when a humanoid robot can wire electrical or do plumbing in a new construction of a home, or be a waiter or whatever, or bartender, game over. Financial Times, Germany and Italy pressed to bring $245 billion of gold home from the U.S. If it's at Fort Knox, it might not be there. Trump's attacks on the Fed and growing geopolitical risks to reignite debate about repatriating bullion. Most countries have bullion in this country, or at least part of their bullion reserve in this country, just as for protection. Fox News, Trump heads to NATO summit as Europe agrees to heed his defense spending demands. On Monday, the president announced a historic ceasefire deal between Israel and Iran. And so the Europeans plan to increase their NATO to spending, the members of NATO, to 5% GDP. Most NATO members have agreed to the increase, except for Spain. Newsweek is reporting Zelensky assassination plot foiled. What to know? It wasn't really foiled. It was apparently the Ukrainians said this guy, a Polish pensioner, an old guy, Polish man, was activated by Russia with a plan to take out Zelensky at Poland's airport using either first-person view drone or sniper rifle. Would-be assassin was a firm believer in Soviet ideology. Why would that help Russia? Russia isn't communist anymore. They keep trying to infer that Russia is trying to reconstitute the Soviet Union. That's just not true. It's an impossibility, and it doesn't name the Polish man. Okay. If they even existed. Zero Hedges reporting all eyes on Beijing's annual reshuffle of military chiefs amid signs of Xi's waning power. And if you don't know, around this time when they reshuffle the military, all of a sudden military chiefs die or disappear. When they reshuffle, they throw cards away. The highest military leadership body of the communist regime suddenly passed away. Hu Qi-lang, former vice chairman of CCP's Central Military Commission, passed away on June 2nd. Meanwhile, He Wei-dong, one of the two vice chairmen of the Central Military Commission, whose status in the military is only second to the other vice chairman, Zhang Huiyao, disappeared from the public eye on March 11th after a closing ceremony of the third session of National People's Congress. That's China. That's authoritarian. You know, if you start seeing people in the military disappear. Crazy. Little technical problems today with my scene switcher. I don't know why that happens. Wish I could figure it out. Thanks for joining me today, though. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment. I'm here every day, for the most part, Monday through Friday. Live stream on Rumble starting at 10 a.m. where I give you the most important headlines, usually about 30 headlines in an hour. The most consequential headlines of the day, especially if you're checked in with reality and not a liberal lunatic, a libtard who people don't know anything that's going on in the world and have a hard time discerning material that's broadcast, because if you're really not reading the news, you can't really understand what's going on because you're listening to people tell you what's going on, and it's hard to discern who's telling you the truth. But if you read it, you can kind of figure out where they're sourcing their information and whether or not that can be corroborated and whether or not something is factual, or as close to determining if something is factual or not. Or You got to figure it out on your own. And so that's what I do here every day. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you. For those of you who are coming back, I did take a long weekend this weekend. And as I said at the beginning of the program, that I took a long weekend off to unplug. Kept my phone in my suitcase. Didn't even follow the news. I did hear about the attack on Saturday, but other than that, I was at a retreat where phones were not allowed, but still people that were looking at their phones all the time. Even people talking on their phones when they weren't supposed to. But it just goes to show you, especially younger people, they can't divorce themselves from their phones. And now young people, when they stop using their phone, they get depressed. They have withdrawal symptoms. Crazy. All right, thanks for joining me today. You can check me out on social media, X, Facebook, Getter Mind, True Social, Substack. I'll see you tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to have a Tuesdays with Perry episode tonight. We might push it off till tomorrow. I still have a lot of shit to get together and get reoriented. So I might push that off for till tomorrow night. So a Wednesday edition of Tuesdays with Perry. We go live at 9:15. But I will address that probably tomorrow. I doubt we're going to have one tonight. We'll see. Also, we're in the middle of a heat wave here, so I'm trying to cool down the house. All right. Thanks again. See you mañana. Respect.
You can't handle the truth.
The new world order.
I kill you.
You're crazy, man. You're crazy. I like you, but you're crazy.
Google me, bitch! Google me!